In the last section, we looked at one possible solution to the steps problem. In this section, we're going to start to code it up. We'll get through this solution pretty quickly, and then we'll move on to an alternative solution that I think is a little bit more interesting in the next section. So let's get through this one. Now, I want to use these steps that I've written out over here so we can just very easily read through them as we put together the solution. So I'm going to kind of place my windows ever so slightly so we can see both of them at the same time. Throughout this course, you've seen me put together several diagrams like this that kind of use pseudocode to walk through a solution. I hope that you're definitely getting a sense of how you might put these together yourself in an interview setting. Anytime you're in an interview setting, especially at a whiteboard, I highly recommend, I can't say it enough, I highly recommend you try to write out a possible solution with pseudocode, or like basically plain English, before attempting to code it on the whiteboard. When you use pseudocode to outline your solution, it's going to more easily communicate what you're trying to do to your interviewer. And your interviewer might be able to help you catch errors rather than if you went straight into a code solution and they are both helping you try to catch errors but also understand what the heck you're trying to write with code. So in general, highly recommend you try writing out a pseudocode solution. All right, let's give this a shot. So we're going to start off first by iterating from 0 to n, and this is intended to be the current row that we are operating on, where a row is like one string set. Okay, so we'll say for let row equals 0, row less than n, row plus plus. And then inside of here, for every different row that we are going to operate on, we're going to create a completely empty string, a brand new string that we're going to call stare. Now we could call stare anything else. Honestly, I just, maybe it would be better to call it step or something. I thought stare was still reasonably related to the problem, but different enough from the function name of steps. Like steps and step, they're a little bit too close, so I would definitely not use step personally. So we'll say let stare. It's going to be an empty string. Next, we are going to iterate from 0 to n, and this is intended to be our iteration through all the different columns that we're going to work on. So for let column starting at 0, column less than n, column plus plus. So for each column, we're going to write an if statement. We're going to say if the current column that we're looking at is equal to or less than the current row. So if the current column is less than or equal to the current row, then we want to add a pound symbol to the stare string. So we'll say stare plus equals pound. If column is not less than or equal to row, then we're going to instead add a space. So else stare plus equals space. And make sure you have a space here, not an empty string. It is supposed to be a space. So make sure you have a character inside there. Finally, after we process one entire row, so this is the row processing step right here. We have processed the entire row. We have now assembled a full stare string. We need to make sure that we console log it. So we'll console log stare. Make sure that you are console logging stare still inside of the row for loop, because we want to end up with n number of console logs. Like in the case of passing in 4 here, we want to end up with 4 console logs. So I don't want to put the console log at the very bottom of the function. I want to still be inside of my for loop so that I get one console log for each row that we are attempting to assemble here. Okay, so this looks good. Let's save this. We'll run our tests and see how we're doing. So back over here in my terminal, you can see that we got a lot of the console logs from the testing code, and I've got 4 tests passing, which definitely makes me feel like we got the right solution. So this is looking pretty good. This is one possible solution. If you are in an interview setting, this is probably the type of solution I recommend you go for. It's very easy to reason about. It's easy to troubleshoot, pretty reasonable. Having said that, we are going to look at an alternate solution in the next section that uses a little bit of recursion. This next solution is going to be a little bit more tricky, and just because it is tricky, I generally recommend not going straight to this solution in an interview setting unless you are specifically asked for a recursion solution. Nonetheless, we haven't spoken a lot about recursion yet inside this course, and so this is going to be our first good taste of recursion, which is a topic that we'll be discussing a pretty good amount throughout the course as well. So let's take a quick pause and then start to tackle that second solution in the next video.